Started. My name is Laura. I am here to help Al with getting your questions answered. You can type them in the chat or the QA. We might have a good amount of people here, so we're going to hold off those questions until the end. So you can type them in, absolutely, and then at the end I will answer them. Sometimes they get answered before we even get to the end. So also you will receive an email from me later today, tomorrow morning at the latest, that will have these slides for you as well as the recording. We are recording today's workshop. Oh, I think that is about it. So Al has another meeting. So this will not be going over time for you guys, just so you know. All right, Al, are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. We will end at 11:15, no matter what. So if you've got other things on your schedule, you can make sure you make them. Uh, so let's talk about not-for-profit basics. And what are we going to do this morning? We'll talk about SCORE, first of all. If you don't know anything about SCORE, what's a not-for-profit? How do you govern it? How do you manage it? How do you finance it? And how do you set it up? So SCORE is a national organization with over 10,000 volunteers or business mentors spread over 220 chapters across the country. Locally, we serve the Medina, Mahoning, Portage, and Wayne County areas, but wherever you are, there's probably a SCORE location pretty close to where you are. And if you request a mentor, one of the things you have to put in is your zip code, and it will try to find you a mentor that's close to you. Our mission is to help small business communities, and we do it through mentoring and education. And our vision is that every person, every business has the support they need to thrive. We've been at this since 1964. We haven't got to every business and every person, but we're trying. And we'll keep at it until maybe we get there someday. As I said, we do this through mentoring and education. Mentoring we do is one-on-one. It's free. It's confidential. We can do it face-to-face in a Starbucks. We can do it by phone. We can do it by video, whatever works best for you. And if you've just got a simple question, we'll answer that question and on we go. But I've had clients that I've had for over 12 years now. So we'll stay with you as long as you need business counseling, business coaching. Our workshops, education, most of the things we do today are online. It's much more convenient for our clients and for everybody else, but we can do them in person. We have done them, and it's things like not-for-profit basics, starting your own business, business planning, financial management, marketing, and others. And so if you go to our website, which is akron.score.org, you can find what Akron offers. If you go to score.org, you can find out what our national organization offers. And if you want to get a mentor in your area, go to score.org and click on get a mentor, and it'll find you one. And you should get a call back after you submit the application sometime in 24 to 48 hours from the time you submit that application. And hopefully it's somebody close to you. If you want to call our office in Akron, if you're close, there's the number there. And as Laura said, you'll have a copy of these slides either late this afternoon or early tomorrow morning. So what is a not-for-profit? And there are many, many misconceptions out there about what a not-for-profit is, and we're going to clear them all up this morning. A not-for-profit is an organization that's put together for the purpose of some public cause, to give some good, some improvement to the community. And it could be local, it could be statewide, nationwide, regional. So examples of national are the Red Cross. They're a not-for-profit organization. They're nationwide. But yet in every town, I think you'll find small not-for-profits that serve just the local community. But the bottom line is it's here to help further some public cause. Not-for-profits have been widely successful over the years. 05, we had over 50,000, and 9 years later, 64% of them are still there, still functioning. So not-for-profits are a very viable business entity, business organization structure here in the U.S. If you're going to create a not-for-profit, I would suggest you start with the mission and vision. What are you trying to do? You need a board of governors or a board of directors, so you should start to get them. Decide what it is that service delivery is going to be for your organization. Add up all the costs, do your financial projections, and then you can register with the state, then the IRS, and possibly locally. And then you're legal. So we'll come back to this as we go along. Examples of not-for-profits are charitable organizations that give away money, like the United Appeal, educational organizations, colleges, universities that are they're not-for-profit, scientific organization, chambers of commerce, social clubs, and service organizations. So there's lots of forms for a not-for-profit. The most common is the 501c3, which is a public charity. Here in our area, it's the Akron Canton Regional Food Bank, Goodwill Industries, Summit County Historical Society. They're public charities to do good, or public foundations that give things away like money. And the Akron community does that, as does the GAR Foundation. They give money away in grants. One of the most prolific charities is the Burton D. Morgan public charity that gives money to small businesses. So why one versus the other? Or for-profits. For-profits produce, market, sell products and services to make money for the sole purpose of making money for its owners and investors. That's what it's in business for, is to make money. A not-for-profit is kind of a misnomer, but it will produce, market, sell products or services to improve the community. And there are no owners or investors, so it doesn't profit an owner or an investor. So nobody, quote unquote, profits from the not-for-profit. So there's no owners and nobody makes money with it. It's for-profit is either privately funded or publicly funded by owners of stock. Its income and profits benefit the owners, goes right to the owners. It's governed by the owners. And if you're a single owner, then you make all the decisions. And it may be bought and may be sold. And the profits of the sales go to the owners of the company they're selling. So it's clearly a for-profit for the owners, investors entity. A not-for-profit, on the other hand, is for the benefit of the community. So therefore, the community owns it. There's no private interest, no stock, no investors. And no one can personally benefit from the earnings of the business, but you can have employees and volunteers, and you can buy services and pay for fees for service. Income that's greater than the expenses goes back into the organization, which sounds a lot like profit to me, and it is, but we call it surplus when it goes back into the organization. The not-for-profit is not governed by the owners. It's governed by a board of trustees or a board of directors. So they make all of the financial decisions, all of the hiring and firing and directional strategic decisions. If you sell a not-for-profit, it can't be sold for a profit. You can have money that goes back into the bank that's left over after you pay all the bills, but that organization goes out of business. The assets then have to be given to another not-for-profit. So again, it doesn't go to anybody, it goes back to another not-for-profit to go back into the community. So bottom line, for-profits are for the benefit of the owners, not-for-profits are for the benefit of the community. Very fundamental difference between the two. So if you're thinking about it, what's going to be right for you? The wrong decision to start a not-for-profit is to make money, because you can't make any money if you're one of the board of directors. The right reason is to do something better for the community. And you want to do that only if you're going to rely on donations, like government funding and or personal grants. And 30% of your income must come from public support. It must come from donations. So all donations from grants, foundations, personal count in that 30%, but you can't not have public money involved in the not-for-profit. What are the advantages? Well, you get tax exemption. You pay no federal, state, local taxes, no sales tax, and no corporate taxes. So that says the money you bring in goes 100% goes to the benefit of the community. Donors have the ability to deduct those donations, and you can apply for grants. Any grant you apply for are going to want you to demonstrate that you're legally registered as a not-for-profit before they provide that grant to you. However, the not-for-profit does pay taxes like water assessments, street cleaning, Social Security taxes if you have employees, Medicare taxes if you have employees, workers' comp, unemployment taxes, and federal withholding taxes. So there's some taxes that you do pay. The disadvantage of a not-for-profit is if you start it and decide to be the operating officer or the executive director, in theory, the board makes all the decisions and they could decide to terminate you. It doesn't happen very often, but it's possible. The not-for-profit is limited to specifically how it was chartered, what's its mission, and purpose to be. You really can't lobby at all as a not-for-profit. Everything you do is public. Your meetings are public, your meetings are public, your minutes are public, your financials are public, everything is public for a not-for-profit. And in some cases, what you have to report is more extensive than a for-profit entity. So it could be a little more work. So think really hard about, is this the right legal entity for you? Regulations that you also still have to follow, if there's zoning permits, occupancy permits, local regulations on facilities, safety regulations, you have to follow all of those. Same with licensing for like any other licensing required. If you're a hairdresser, you have to be licensed. If you're selling food, you have to be licensed. Those are all there. You must follow the EEO, equal opportunity regulations, all health and safety regulations. So the not-for-profit still is an operating entity that has huge government oversight on a lot of things like occupancy and licensing and EEO and OSHA. The single advantage is that it doesn't pay any federal, state, or local taxes. Some people, one of the myths that we hear all the time is, oh, a not-profit can't make any money. It has to give away everything. No. Not-for-profit not only can, but should make money. And that profit is called surplus income. Surplus income has to go back into the services, so it doesn't go to benefit anybody. You can't pay dividends. It allows the not-for-profit to pay its bills, operate efficiently, reinvest in services, and take advantage of opportunities. So if you had money in the bank and you had the opportunity to buy 1,000 t-shirts for $1 a piece and sell them for 20, that's a good deal. But you need to have $1,000 in the bank. And if you spent all of your income and you don't have that in the bank, then you lose the opportunity. So think about that as a not-for-profit, that it operates exactly like a for-profit. Money comes in, you pay for goods and services, and the rest goes into the bank. So it operates exactly the same. So governing not-for-profit, we talked about briefly how that works. It must have a board of directors or board of trustees. Trustees, directors are used interchangeably. Because it's the not-for-profit is owned by the community, the board represents that community. They are the representatives of the community. The board sets the policies. They have the financial fiduciary responsibilities. They evaluate not-for-profit employees. The board is ultimately in charge. Different than a for-profit where the owners or owner, if there's just one, is in charge. Here, the board is in charge. So how does that work? If Jane Goodmom starts a for-profit organization, she's the owner-operator, the employees report to her. She takes all the money that's left over after the bills are paid and puts it in her pocket, or leaves it in the business, but can take it out later. If she's the founder of a not-for-profit daycare, the board of directors now sets policies. Other people could be the board themselves. She might be the executive director. but she's again subject to the oversight and rulings of the board of directors because they make all the important decisions. So it's very different between profits and for-profits. In looking at your trustees or directors, in the state of Ohio, we have a minimum of 3, but you really need to think about more than 3 because you need to do the work of whatever the board is. It should be an odd number because if it comes to a vote, you never want to have a tie. We don't recommend friends or relatives unless they have some specific expertise because it doesn't necessarily have the greatest optics. If you can't have term limits, you want to stagger them so that the whole board doesn't term out in the same day, week, month, or year. As you think about a director, things you should think about in selecting them is, are they committed to your vision? Are they willing to give time, talent, and treasure? Can they influence others? Do they have community contacts? Do they understand how a not-for-profit board operates? Are they willing to raise money? And so maybe they don't have to do all of those, but they should be able to do some of them. And they should give their treasure some amount of money they should donate every year. Why do you want to do that? Because if you're out raising money and the potential donor says, well, does your board of directors support you? And you want to be able to say every single one of them contributes according to their means. Okay, then if the board buys in, then probably I should buy in too. If you say, well, not everybody in the board, we got maybe 3 out of 5 and 2 don't give. Well, why should I give money if your board that's the closest to what you do doesn't give money? Why should I? Fair question. So just consider that as you put your board together. The duties of the board, again, it governs the organization. It is the governing body. It establishes the policy, goals, objectives, hires and fires the executive director, sets the salary, the pay for the executive director, evaluates the performance of the director, and decisions of the board are collective decisions. So they make it together and they vote on it. So it's a collective decision. Please remember, the board makes the rules, so pick them carefully. The board's the ultimate boss. The board hires and fires the executive director. And if that's you want to think about that. And if you're the executive director, or even if you sit on the board, you can't get rid of the board. Only the board can get rid of board members. So if they're not performing, then the board has to decide that. You certainly want to avoid conflicts of interest. So for example, if one of the board members' wife owns a office supply store, you cannot, should not, better not buy office supplies from a board member's significant other. That would be a clear conflict of interest. And because a not-for-profit is public, people have a right to ask those kinds of questions. And the last thing you want to do is be on the front page of your local newspaper as having a huge conflict of interest. That will seriously impact your future donors. As you think about your board, it's nice to have people with specific expertise on that board. So you might want to have a lawyer for not-for-profit law. You might want to have a banker to manage the money. Certainly somebody that understands marketing and public relations. Insurance, business advisors, people that understand how to run an operation. So it's choosing those board members, in addition to what we said before, it's nice if they have a very specific expertise to help you. Because in my case, I don't have any experience in any of those as a professional. So my not-for-profit needs a lot of help. If you're big enough, you could have a nominating committee that identify the needs, bring candidates around, make contact, determine their interest, and interview them and bring them on and conduct an orientation. So rather the nominating committee, which would be a subcommittee of the board, would be the one responsible for recruiting those new board members. According to IRS regulations, you need 4 officers on the board. The president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. President is the chief executive officer. The vice president, second command. The treasurer keeps the money and the secretary takes the notes and does all of the paperwork for it. And a single person can hold two roles. The only two they can't hold together are president and vice president. So you could have a president treasurer, vice president secretary. It's many hands make light work, so it'd be nice to spread that work around if you can. You may want to, as you get larger, have committees on the board, maybe nominating committee, marketing and PR, fundraising, personnel. If you're having special events, maybe an ad hoc committee for that special event. And they would support the board as volunteers or maybe as board members to do some of the work of the board. Again, you should have as many board members as you need. You need to have a monthly annual meeting. So if you only have one meeting a year, it's got to be that meeting. You've got to let the time, date, and place be publicized enough so that the members can attend. So you can't announce a meeting at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning at midnight tonight. That wouldn't be right. And you should always have an agenda and supporting materials sent out ahead of time. So in managing a not-for-profit, the executive or the chief operating officer, the executive director, or whatever you choose to call them, reports to the board, does not serve on the board, can be at the board meetings, but can't vote. It's the staff to the board, or the board committees. It implements agency programs, does the work of it's the chief operating officer of the organization. And if they're employees, they would be the person to hire and fire the employees, and they also must ensure the bills get paid. And if you're big enough to hire employees, make sure the employees meet whatever certification that you require. Have jobs descriptions, train them, motivate them, just like any employees. So that sounds very much like a for-profit organization, doesn't it? And it is. It's exactly the same. If you're going to have policies, they should be someplace that can be seen by the public. It's written. Procedure for implementation, who's responsible for it, and when it was approved by the board. So it should show up in the meeting minutes of the board also. So in financing a not-for-profit, you can sell goods or services and you can collect donations. So in financing it, you can have that income from services or investment income, donated income, government income from grants or contracts, and other income, special events, in kind, all forms of donations can come in. Donations, when they come in, have to be designated for your 501c3 charity by IRS regulations. In this case of Ohio, you have to register your not-for-profit with the Ohio Attorney General so that they know that you're soliciting funds in the state of Ohio or whatever state you're in. The importance of understanding the difference between designated or restricted donations and undesignated or unrestricted donations is very key in accepting donations. A designated or restricted donation is given to the charity for a very specific purpose. Unrestricted, undesignated donations can be spent any way the board or the charity chooses. Why is that important to know? Because if you get a designated restricted donation and you can't spend it on what was designated for, then you can't do anything with it. My worst case example is right here in the state of Ohio. We had a little country preacher in a little small town, did great work, worked out of his garage. And a gentleman that saw the great work he did, when he died, he left $25,000 to this little country preacher to build a church. Designated donation, restricted donation, only to be used to build a church. Now, the $25,000 is more than that little country preacher ever saw in any one year altogether. So he certainly can't build a church. So what happens to that money? Well, when the country teacher dies, it's part of the charity, and the state of Ohio takes it and does something with it, but it certainly wouldn't be building a church. So you want to, as you collect donations, try really hard to have the donations be unrestricted. If somebody is adamant that it needs to be restricted for some specific purpose, try to get them to restrict it for a period of time, 5 years, 10 years, and after that it becomes unrestricted. So that would have solved the problem of the little country preacher. If it had become unrestricted in 5 years or 10 years, then he could have used it for the good of the community, and rather than having it go to the state, which was not the will of the person. Okay. Donations should be acknowledged in writing, and anything over $250 has to be acknowledged, stating that nothing was given or received in exchange for this donation. And anything that's filed is public information. So anybody needs a list of your donors, that's public information, because the not-for-profit is a public charity. And foundation grants. No charitable business can run exclusively on grants. Usually because, for example, they're one time. They don't often renew. They're going to require a written proposal and request that you have to develop yourselves or with a grant writer. You often write them because you have a very specific thing you want to do with it. Maybe you want to buy a computer. Maybe you want to buy tables and chairs for the office or whatever it is. And that grant may be publicly advertised, and that says now there's going to be competition for that grant. Grants usually have a grant window that you have to submit your grant within that window. And when the window closes, they don't accept grants anymore. So research that grant. As you research potential grants, make sure the grant is, or the grantor's mission is to give grants for something that you need. So you're not asking an arts charity to give you money for desks and chairs. So you make sure you get that right as you research foundations or other sources of grant money. You're going to have to write a proposal asking that grant. There may be written materials, mission statement, budgets, other things that are going to go with that. Foundations sometimes are very specific about their mission or their geography. So if they're not funding things in your geography, your county, your state, then you're wasting your time. You should always contact the foundation people, get to know them. They're good people to know, and they'll help you. And let them get to know your organization too, the good work that you're doing, which improves your odds of being successful. But because it's free money, it's very competitive. Lots and lots of people are going after the money that's out there. The money that is available for grants doesn't double every year. It very, very slowly increases, and the competition is increasing faster than the growth of potential grant money. Request only what they're going to grant. If they give $5,000 grants, don't ask for 10. If they're granting $5,000 grants, assume you won't get the full 5 because they like to spread the money around. Follow up with letters of thanks. Some grants may require a written report of the success of whatever it was. So if you turn in a grant to buy desks, they may say, okay, let's see pictures and number and quantities of the desks that you bought. As with any good business proposal, if you lose, don't get it, find out why. Go and ask them. Say, what happened? What should I have done better? Most places will tell you what you did wrong. I'm a big fan of local foundations because most not-for-profits do work locally. Local organizations have a really difficult time getting national attention. And some local are good size, some are not so good size. A large grant would be $25,000 for a well-established charity. National foundations usually are for very large, very visible nationwide issues. Childhood suicide might be really a big national issue that a very large charity might give to. So go first to local because you're local, go to regional because you're at least somewhat regional. National, I don't hold out much hope for with a local not-for-profit. Now, if you're a Red Cross, that's something different because you're nationwide. But if you're a local charity, which most of us are, stay local. How do you find foundations? The library is a tremendously good source of that. So your research librarian can point you to either printed material or online sources. The 990, which is the IRS year-end reporting requirement for a charity, they're public information, so you can find that. And there's other places you can go to find these charities. When you research them, you should find out where they are, what they are, what's their areas of focus. I said, if you don't apply for grants that's not in their area of focus. Find out if you're eligible, geographic size, type of services you're providing. Where does that fit in? What are you asking for? Are you asking for operating money or capital money? If they don't fund operating money, then don't apply. Sometimes the grant only lasts a year or two, so you have to spend it in the year in which it's given. And the application will give you deadlines and formats and things you need to know. And if they have 10 questions in their grant, answer all 10. If you answer 9 out of 10, that's a good reason for them to exclude you, throw it in a wastebasket, because they've got other people that have filled out all 10 questions. So if they ask for 10, give them 10. If they ask for brochures, give them brochures. If they do not ask for brochures, don't ask for brochures. Don't send them brochures. So do exactly what they're asking for. So usually the requests will tell you specifically what they want. And here are some things that they might ask for. So as you think about writing grants, you might want to prepare some of these things ahead of time. And a challenge grant is one where an organization will donate some number of dollars, let's say 50,000. If you can get other donors to match it, then you get 100,000. And it works at NPR, National Public Radio does that all the time in their fundraising campaigns. If your fiscal year is different than the granting organization, you may have a speed bump here because the two don't match. You may want to spend it in your fiscal year, but they may want you to spend it in their fiscal year. So you just need to be aware that sometimes those differ. So when you're setting it up, what do? You want to know what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, whom you're going to do it to, where you're going to do it. So you should have answers to all of those as you begin to set it up, because that'll be part of the application process. Define your mission. What are you going to do? Are there organizations that have similar missions to you? Is you going to be a competitor? And bottom line, what's your niche going to be? What makes you different and unique? Just like any business, what makes you different and unique? And who are you going to serve? Age, geography, income, problems that they have, needs, whatever. What is it you're going to do for the community? And be able to answer that question in your application for a 501c3. You're going to need a 3-year budget, which would have sources of funds, uses of funds, and where's it going to come from, and what are you going to do with it, and does that match your mission? So with what do you have to file? With Ohio in this case, and I think it's true in most other states, with the Secretary of State, articles of incorporation, who you are, what you're going to do, what is your business. In Ohio, if you're going to solicit funds, you have to file with the Attorney General to say, I'm going to solicit funds in Ohio, and I think other states have very similar requirements. Then you file with the IRS using a Form 1023, and that's the application form. They'll want to see a copy of your bylaws and your code of regulations and who your board of directors are. So that's all part of the legal filings. Now, bottom line, not-for-profits are businesses. And they have to file with the IRS at the end of the year a 990 to talk about income and expenses. And also file with, in this case, Ohio, the Ohio Attorney General, but in other states, I'm pretty sure the same is true. So at the end of the year, just like any business, you have to file your income taxes. So where do we go from here? What are next steps? You need a business plan, and we'll help you with that. We have a business planning 101 seminar. Work with a mentor or go to score.org. And there's some books out there if you choose to buy a book. And I'm going to stop for questions.
All right, everybody, you can type in your questions now. Al, I see we have one now. Is it illegal for board to be family? For example, siblings started a nonprofit together. Can each sibling be a board member?
They can. I wouldn't recommend it because the optics of that look like it's very single-minded in its thinking. It's for the good of the family, not necessarily for the good of the public. So I'd be careful of that.
All right. Any other questions, everybody? Go ahead. We'll wait a couple of minutes so you can type them in. We've got about 8 minutes left. Al, you did such a good job. There's no questions.
But we did the basics.
Yeah.
If you're serious about starting a not-for-profit, I would get yourself a SCORE advisor and talk about the details of it and work through the business plan.
All right, let's see. We have a raised hand. Desi, go ahead and hold on a second. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good morning. Thank you. Very helpful information. I'm trying to get encouraged about trying to open up a nonprofit. Seems like it's going to be a lot of work, so I'm trying to stay motivated. um, but what my question is now if we cannot depend on grants for funding, what other options will we have to keep up with to stay to keep having funds or whatever?
Most organizations will have a fundraising committee, and that's their job. So you can do fundraisers, you can do perpetual giving, you can just go knock on doors.
Okay.
In the ways that, when I say don't depend on grants and foundations, I don't mean that 100%, but what you will find is you've got a grant, and next year that grant's not there anymore.
Right.
So now you've got to, go search for another source of money.
Okay, gotcha.
If you've read the book Who Moved My Cheese, not for profit and looking for money is always looking for new cheese. Sometimes it goes away. Sometimes it'll just change its mission. We lost funding here in Akron when one of our funders 10 years ago went from funding small businesses to funding the arts. Okay. Not quite sure why, but we were then out in the cold. So what had been, a several year source of money just disappeared overnight.
Wow.
So you always need to be on the hunt.
Okay.
We as Akron SCORE are always raising money, and we're on the hunt all year long. It's an ongoing effort by our fundraising team. They're continually writing grants, so it's an ongoing effort.
Gotcha.
I will say I write the grants for SCORE Akron, and we try to submit at least one a month. So we stagger them out throughout the year, and we try to research ones that, think outside the box of what you want, what your foundation is, your
Mhm.
nonprofit, and kind of think outside the box for wording on, is it civic? Is it, um, business? Is it, and you can find grants online,
Mhm.
at the library, like Al had said.
Okay.
The library is the
It-
best resource.
okay. Okay. Good. Thank
You
you.
go there and they have programs that you can't access online, and usually you can use them for free without a library card. Some,
Mm, okay. And is that the same as far as, I don't know if there's a difference between government contracts and grants, but is that the same for like government if you get a government contract?
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
but a government contract is a contract. It's a fee for service. It's not a donation. So
Okay.
remember, you have to have 30% of your income has to come from donations. So you can't, as a 501c3, have 100% contract money from any government, right, or all governments. You have to have
Okay.
30% has to come from private money or grant money or someplace other than that fee for service business.
Okay.
all right, we got a couple more questions. Can we easily switch from 1023 EZ to 1023 after receiving the determination letter?
Piece of cake. Piece
There
of
you
cake. Don't worry about it.
And then can a nonprofit have investment accounts, money markets, CD, equities?
Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes.
If a for-profit calls their donation a grant, is it actually a grant?
They can call it anything they want. Grants and almost interchangeable in the terminology. Uh,
Uh, does it count towards the 30% from donation?
yes, it
Ah,
does. That's what you want to know.
all right. I think we're all caught up on questions. Oh, wait. Cause-related sales, golf outings, flower sales, money comes from hard work. Yes, Jen.
Yes, it
Yeah,
does.
you can be as creative. You gotta get creative, right?
But it's still hard work.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's been wonderful. I'm going to have to scoot this morning. We encourage you to go to score.org or akron.score.org and find other webinars that are available. They're free. Got to
They
like
are
free.
great. All right, everybody. You will get that email from me with this recording, the slides from this, as well as a link to the workshops, and if you want to request a mentor to help you. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Al had to hop out. So again, have a great day, and you'll get an email from me, Julie. Let me write down the email. If your email, let me see here. Your email that you registered from would be where I'm going to send it. So Zoom works with our system. Okay, Julie, I got your email and I'll compare it. Make sure. Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a great day.